Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our wonderful and beautiful little lovelies out there. And I hope that you're feeling the love. You continue to feel the love. I was forgetting to say that, wasn't I, my delicious babies? Anyway, so I haven't got my lights on again today. I'm just not. I've really got to go and get some other lights, some much lighter ones. But not to worry, not to worry, because my lights are always shining, my delicious babies. Now then, what's the time, Mr. Wolf? So the time is, my delicious babies, 6 minutes past 11 a.m. in our old England, in my neck of the woods, in our Brummie my delicious babies. And the sun is shining, weather is sweet, yeah, you know what I mean? Absolutely delicious today, my delicious babies. It's a little bit breezier, but it's delicious weather, my delicious babies. So it's still bikini weather for myself. Okay, my delicious babies now. So, and I hope that wherever you are, that that the weather is absolutely beautiful and delicious where you are, my delicious babies. Now then, so I've got 3 videos for you today, my little lovelies. Okay, so right, okay, let's go to the first one. So this one here, my delicious babies, I think it's about 30 minutes long, just over 30 minutes long. Okay, my delicious babies, happens to have 190,000 subscribers, my delicious babies. And the uploader, with anybody not in that way, not in that way, is called capital W Wendell. Okay, so that's Wendall. Wendell. That's the uploader, my delicious babies. And the video should read, I tried to film India's rich side. They kicked me out. Okay, my delicious babies. So I'm just going to repeat this again for you. I tried to film India's rich side and they kicked me out. Okay, my delicious babies. Now, to be fair, with this uploader, I mean, at the end of the day, I do not believe I've seen him before, or I may have seen him before, not in that way, not in that way. He spends really, shall we say, not knocking your man there, but he spends a lot of time walking through, explaining that he's going to have something to eat and so forth. So by the time that you actually get to that part of the video, my delicious babies, okay, but I'd already wrote it down by then. But for some of you, my delicious babies, you may still want to view this video, okay? It just goes to show how 2 different halves live, if you know what I mean. My delicious babies, yes. But, well, basically, there's not that much to write home about, okay, my delicious babies, and that's just being honest. So when he put, I tried to film India's rich side, there wasn't like, I would say, an awful lot, okay? Nevertheless, he's showing you India, bless, and they all seem to be, there we are, most friendly, okay? Well, to be honest with you, myself in our old England, my delicious babies, to be perfectly honest, I've never met, and let it continue, I've never ever met a rude Indian or a bad Indian. No, I haven't. Okay, my delicious babies. But the point is, when you see how different the 2 sides are, so you've got the side where it's there we are, what's just came into my noddle, it's every man for himself. And then you got the other side where it's full of glass and everything, my delicious babies, you know what I mean? It sort of goes round in a circle. So the next video, my delicious babies, okay, so this is an interesting one. This is nearly 30 minutes long, my delicious babies. And by the way, this is not coding when I say that. And this uploader happens to have 709,000 subscribers, my delicious babies. And it's called, and these are, 3 in capitals, BBC, and then space capital archive. Okay, my delicious babies, so it's BBC space archive. And the video should read, okay, I'm not talking to any of our delicious babies who have already watched these videos. I'm talking to our delicious babies who have not. It should read, 1966, Meet the Rag and Bone Man, and then it's Man Alive, BBC Archive. Okay, Mads, Lichtlich Babies, so I'm just going to repeat that for you once more. 1966, Meet the Rag and Bone Man, Man Alive, BBC Archive. Okay, Mads, Lichtlich Babies. It's really interesting because you see, at that time, they used to have horses. So, the rag and bone men used to go around with horses. Okay, Martin took babies and they talk about, what it's like to be a rag and bone man. I mean, they love their horse. There we are. They love their horses. Do you understand what I mean? Um, and they talk about the freedom. There's one who says that, you know, he doesn't like the idea of clocking in, clocking out, or somebody, sort of saying, in other words, it's only a figure of speech, Mads Lichtlich babies, but it's like GBH in a year old. Do you understand what I mean? Well, I felt the same, Mads Lichtlich babies, when I used to deliver parcels. So out of all of the jobs that I did, and yet, like for the other jobs, there we are, they paid more, like office work management, and things like this now then. But where I got most happiness, there we are, was delivering parcels. Because for myself, you could talk to me lovely customers, and I was so blessed to have really lovely, wonderful, not in that way, not in that way, really lovely and wonderful customers. I was truly blessed for it. And not only that, but I could go from one road to the next road to the next road. Do you see what I'm saying, Mads? Baby? So for myself, I'm not using a lot of her juice, you know what I mean? But, when you listen to this video, I mean, it's in black and white, Mads, babies, but you see how, there we are, how they lived. You see how mankind lived. Do you see what I mean? Okay, not only that, but it's more of a, there we are, relaxed. And then they explain that iron is iron, but then they explain about the zinc, the copper. That they go into a lot in a very short video, Maatlich baby. So I happen to find this type of thing now. There we are, most interesting. Plus, what they also said about the horses is that you know, if you compare it to like a van or or whatever, where you got flipping MOT, then you got to pay for petrol or whatever. Then you got to pay for the insurance. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, it was just easier that way. But if you go back in time, my delicious babies, it was horses. It's like the only time when you really see horses now is if I suppose if there's somebody, because in the countryside, do you know what I mean? They do where ones will the little babies now, little bands, where for some they'll have a horse riding lessons, or um, when's the other time you see them? Yeah, very sadly, but for funerals, they use a lot of horses for funerals, to carry, sorry, the family's dear loved ones and, or friends and so forth, you see what I mean? Um, and the other time that they use them is for horse racing, for the rich, is it like Cheltenham and all that, where you've got to get your hat? But of course, if the beautiful dear horse, well, it used to be that way. I'm not sure about now. I'd have to look it up. Well, if they break a leg, well, very sadly, that beautiful dear horse gets put down. All for racing. There we are, all for racing, my delicious babies. Yes. Anyway, talking about horses, there's a beautiful white horse. Just I've actually lent her up against the name of my road. Maatelijk baby. She's one of those, what do they call them, little unicorns. Somebody's put out a white cuddly horse, Maatelijk babies, like, the little unicorn and everything. Oh, I hope somebody takes her away. She's ever so sweet. She's not real, she's a cuddly one, you know what I mean? But I've just lent her up, instead of just leaving her on the path. Somebody's moved her from there to there to, do you know what I mean? And I've just lent her up against the our road sign, Martin Babies. Anyway, but a very interesting video to take a look at, Martin Babies. Now, finally, and then I'm going to be over and out, okay? Um, this one, now I do mention these uploaders from time to time, not in that way, not in that way with anybody, like I said. And it's a capital B, this is the uploader, B-E, and then a space, capital R, inspired. Okay, Mads Lichtlich Babies, so that's the uploader, B space inspired. They have 9.32 million subscribers, Mads Lichtlich Babies. Okay, now once again, I'm not talking to our Lichtlich Babies who have already watched this. I'm talking to our Lichtlich Babies who have not. Now, this is to do with a dear man, not in that way, not in that way, called Fritz. Okay, is it going back to, just trying to remember now, please don't quote me, is it 1998? Anyway, I'll read it out to you, Mads Lichtlich Babies, and again, this video I think is nearly 30 minutes long. Okay, so these are not long videos today, Mads Lichtlich Babies, but it's really important, I feel, to please a little bit of time out of one's day or night, there we are, to please pay attention, there we are, to these videos, okay? It's very important. It may not appear it, Mads Lichtlich Babies, but I can well assure you now, there we are, that it is very, there we are, very important, okay? So this video should read, he named the 13 families no one dares to mention, then in brackets, then got arrested. Yes, Mads Lichtlich Babies, so I'm just going to repeat this again for you, shall I? I think I've seen something like this before to do with Fritz. He named the 13 families no one dares to mention, then in brackets, then he got arrested, then got arrested. So now we're going to close our book, Mads Lichtlich Babies, and what we need to do is we need to go backwards, like I say. It's good to stay in the present. Of course it is. That's common sense. You know, we're living, there we are, in the present, aren't we? Well, I don't know, so we've been told. But the fact of the matter is, Mads Lichtlich Babies, we also need to, there we are, to go backwards to understand, there we are, what has gone on and everything like this now then. And what happened here, this dear man, bless him, he was, it looked to myself, maybe he was talking to his students or something, you know, just need to have a sip of my coffee. What's new, pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Just have a sip, please, and thank you. So what he was talking about, Mads Lichtlich Babies, is this. So he was discussing about all the different families, like the Onassis, the Kennedys, who's that? Is it Dumont or DuPont or something? Okay, they're to do with weapons. Okay, Mads Lichtlich Babies, you know, like for wars, and there we are, and everything. There's lots of different families, Mads Lichtlich Babies, you know, as well as the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, you know, and everything like this now then. And in 30 minutes of this video, nearly 30 minutes, well, your man there, whose channel it is, I assume, is really just done showing you. Okay, Mads Lichtlich Babies, now, very sadly, the consequence of what Fritz said, got him very sadly arrested and locked up, Mads Lichtlich Babies. Now, how can it be? This is a simple thing. This is a question that I'm asking Mads Lichtlich Babies. So how can it be that, because we've heard this long time for whatever o'clock, that, you know, that, so anybody else can be talked about, you or I, Mads Lichtlich Babies, so we can be talked about, but that poxy politicians cannot be talked about, or ones who, you know, are pulling the reins from behind Mads Lichtlich Babies, that they cannot be talked about. So what makes, the only thing that I'm asking, because I'd just like to understand this now, you know what I mean, Mads Lichtlich Babies, yes? So what I want to know is what's so special. That's all I'm asking, Mads Lichtlich Babies. I do not see anything wrong with the question that I'm asking. So why should that dear man, Fritz, because he explained, there we are, the truth, to the best of his ability, my little baby. So because he did that, then he'd get locked up. So how does that rock and roll then? How does that work? You know, if one's tried to hide who they are, they've clearly, there we are, got a lot of secrets. Do you want to know a secret? Do you promise not to tell? Whoa, closer. That's the only reason why somebody wouldn't want to be known. So if, in other words, if ones are honest, then they wouldn't mind coming out. There we are, coming out of the shadows with them artificial babies. That's all I'm saying. You know, I'm a woman with a view. There we are. I shall have my effing view, and that's my view. I'm just, you know, a simple thing. I'm just asking a question. But to lock somebody up for explaining how, according to this video, how 13 families, there we are, can shaft each and every one of us mad little babies, apart from a few countries who know nothing about it. That the poor man there now then got locked up. So something's not adding up, is it, mad little babies, is it? No, it isn't, is it? And this is what I'm saying, mad little babies. So for myself, you know, the way that I see it is, you see, the world that we're living in, ones will get locked up for things now that they call criminal. Okay, Martinish babies, whether that is, which was happening decades ago, which was like a lot of burglaries, you know, and things like this now then. But nobody gets locked up, Martinish babies. And I want to leave my video today to you all, my little beautifuls. So thank you for any views, for any likes. There we are, for the occasional comments and how I love you also. I know it's not very difficult, you know, very easy, sorry, to see my videos because we all know how YouTube, there we are, rocks and rolls. And yesterday they put me on blank tape. You see, you get to know these things, you see what I mean, my little babies, and I just knew I'm going to be put on blank tape, which means it takes longer to upload my video, okay? So they just let me know they're not liking what I've got to say, okay? I do not fully believe that this is the algorithms, not at all. Not when you're dealing with baby channels like man, you know what I mean? Okay, there's certainly, there we are, somebody, bing, 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 behind the old keyboard, Mads Lichtenberg babies, you know what I mean? Yes. But the fact of the matter is that, getting back to the matter in hand, what I wanted to say. So when you've got all these scammers, and you're talking, there we are, serious, big time, there we are, scammers, okay, that I believe, because I like to believe, this is not me being sarcastic to you, my babies, not at all, you know I'd never do that, okay? I like to believe, there we are, ding, ding, dong, dong, that I've got a noddle, I've got something upstairs, you know what I mean? I've got plenty upstairs, actually, okay? That at the end of the day, nothing gets done to theirs. And I am fully believing and fully belief that our putrid governments and any other authority, there we are, they're fully aware of all this, okay? But of course, for these, it's like, well, they never get into trouble, do they, Martish babies? They do not get a lock up, do they? You know, some of these skank ones, there we are, for flipping millions and billions, man. Do you know what I mean? And of course, as we very well know, I mean, some of the largest crooks are the flipping effing banks, isn't it? I mean, how many videos have I listened to, my little babies? I've lost count now. Where, you know, ones go to the bank and, you know, could be for anything. I've heard loads of videos on this. This is no surprise, you know. And anyway, it's been creeping up long term. There we are, long term. I mean, I remember going back years ago, you know, that I was taken out, let's just say, a certain amount of kaching. And, you know, even going back all the way then, oh, what are you going to buy nice? You see what I mean? So it's like it's ingrained in the bank staff. There we are, the bank staff to ask those questions. When really it should be, well, I just want to take my ching, 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 ching. I just want to take some change out the bank. Do you know what I mean? Pound, shilling, pence, dollars and change. So this has been going on, there we are, and extremely, there we are, very, very, very long time. A lot longer, Maatlich babies, and I know this myself. And we can go back, if we want to flipping rock and roll that way now then, isn't it? You can go back, there we are, decades ago. Okay, it's just that what's happened is, Maatlich babies, it's become more highlighted, there we are, now. Yeah, okay? But if you truly go back, they'll ask you about, or especially, I mean, even when I was getting a mortgage when I was 23, they'd ask you what you want it for, and, if you get a loan out or whatever else. And that is going back then, and there we are, and I'm 52. So this has been always happening, there we are, okay, Martish babies, but it's been more highlighted, I repeat again, now. There we are, that's all this is. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes? I mean, I didn't mean all that it is, but it is all that it is. You see what I'm saying? So, but yeah, the banks, and then, when they talk about the bail-ins or the bailouts or whatever, you know what I mean? But, if somebody wants to go and get some ching out their bank, Marslish babies, then they should be able to do so. They shouldn't be told that, oh, you can only have, a monkey 500 or a grand or 2 grand. You can only have that. It's your own flipping hard-earned, there we are, ka-ching. For the ones that we are honest, that is, Marslish babies. You've got a lot of dishonest. Okay, Marslish babies, and I mean ones where they've got, wherever they've got the millions from, or the billions, okay? Nobody can be done telling myself that they've got all those millions or billions, do you know what I mean, by doing an honest day's work, because I don't want to hear that shit, because they haven't. When there's others, bless them, in the world, in our country, all over the world, do you know what I mean, where, they've got to do 2 or 3 jobs, okay, but they're the ones where they have all of their tax stolen. You'd have all their ka-ching stolen to feed the rich. There we are, to feed the rich, isn't it? So at the end of the day, I have a very different view, but that poor man there, Fritz, he should never in a million years, I feel, have been arrested and locked up. No. That's totally unfair. And what about this, and I'm going to mention this again, what about when the dog and bones, phones, when they get stolen, Martelish babies just, taken out of somebody's hand, then they're just off on their, I don't know, their bike or the scooter or whatever else. And then these dog and bones, end up in, somewhere like Algeria. So if somebody's paid 800, I'm going to repeat this again, Martelish babies, if somebody's paid 800 over here for their dog and bone, ching, yes, and then they ship it over to Algeria. It's all done in the space of 3 days, Martelish babies, that's not coding, but you have to look at 3 days here, okay? And it's shipped, and it's already over to Algeria, and ones are paying 1,200 Martelish babies, okay? Now, nobody can tell myself that the likes of Apple and all this, that they do not know what's going on. They're lying little effers, man. There we are, they're lying little effers. They know full well what's bloody damn well going on. Okay, Martelish babies, and that's what I'm saying. So when we look at scammers and everything like this now, then we know, there we are, who the biggest damn scammers are. There we are, in the whole of the flipping damn well world, we do. And that's how I'm going to leave my video, my Little Babies. But once again, um, out of the three videos, the most important, I feel, is the one that I've just been talking about, and the 1966 BBC archives. And of course, if you go back, one last thing, if you go back decades and decades ago, you probably got far more truth, there we are, out of the BBC, okay, than what you would ever get now. Okay, my delicious babies, and that's all that I've got to say, okay? So that's the three videos. So whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, please have a super duper delicious time. You only get one life, my little honey bunnies. Sending peace, love, harmony, and bright blessings to each and every one of you. And may your beautiful little selves and your beautiful little families, may you all be fully protected, and how I love you all so. Okay, and I've still got to put up a shorty video. I'm going to do that now, actually, okay, and I'll take a little tiny bit of footage of this lovely little cabinet that I've got, and you'll see the difference in the quality to, what they're banging out now, unless you can get to a real good, antique dealer or something, you know what I mean? Oh, they mentioned that on the archive one as well, the rag and bone. They mentioned that, at the start, because the mummy and daddy, they had 8 bairns, 8, okay? And they said, would you like what would you like your dad to do? There's a different job. And the one said, well, I would have liked him to have been an antiques dealer, or do you know what I mean? It came out to the babies. But, the way I said it was, and I said it out loud, and I said, but really, I said, shouldn't you just appreciate, there we are, that your dad's working, simple things. You know what I mean, Martin, babies? This is the trouble, isn't it? So, if somebody goes, let me just give an example just before I leave. So, if somebody, say, works in a warehouse, I'm just giving examples now, Martin, baby. So, if somebody, say your dad works in a warehouse, but then the little bands could be bands, friends with other little bands that are, where the dad's got a different profession, maybe he's a white collar or something like this now, then, earning whatever, ka-ching at whatever o'clock, you know what I mean? And he's probably driving, I don't know, one of these posh 4x4s, whatever, and then the other day dad's driving an Escort, you know what I mean? It's a material thing. So instead of seeing it as, well, my dad's putting, food on the table, you know what I mean, regardless of what job he's got, bless him, okay, instead of looking at it that way, this is like a material thing. You see what I mean? I wish that my dad was, doing a job like, do you see what I mean? And the way that I see it is, my delicious babies, nobody should ever be like that. Because everybody's just got to remember now then that somewhere in our existence, my delicious babies, okay, that we've all been used for something. There we are. We've all been used for something. Yeah, simple things. Okay, my delicious babies. So nobody should ever look down and say, I wish this or I wish that, or you know what I mean. Okay, my delicious babies, because at the end of the day, as long as, if somebody's working, putting food on the table or whatever else, and that's what they're doing, isn't it? Nobody should be looking at somebody else and saying, oh, I wish that we had better or whatever. No. Because sometimes the less you have, there we are, is the more you have. You know what I mean? When you start going into these massive, colossal houses and whatever else and mansions and that, well, you may be looking at something colossal and large around yourself, but what does it really truly mean? Because when I used to do my cleaning jobs many, many, many years ago now, I'm telling you something now, my delicious babies, I went to plenty of large, colossal houses. And I'll also tell you this as well, for most, I'll say to my camera, they never had very nice lives. So they might have all of this, that, and the next thing now, drive a posh Mertra or whatever, wheels brum brums, but, their existence I could find plenty more families. I live around beautiful little families, and these are two-bedroom flats. Well, some are saying masonette, somebody's so flat, or whatever it is. The point of the matter is, my little babies, we've all got a roof over our head, thankfully. But I know beautiful, dear little families who are not living in mansions, and yet there we are. They are the most happiest. There we are. The laughter, it's so lovely to hear. So this is what I'm saying, my little babies. Do you know what I mean? So I just think, ones need to ding ding dong dong, really spare a thought, but because one's been driven, oh, I've got to achieve this, I must achieve that in my lifetime. And in the end, they end up, there we are, damn well flipping miserable anyway. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, because they have to sit back then, there we are, and take a look at the damn self. You know what I mean? Especially the damn greedy ones now. There we are. And they have to take a real good look and step back and say, okay, what have I done to get to, there we are, where I am now? And that must be a horrible thing to do, my little babies. I'm being serious. To my heart, it must be a really horrible thing to do. To know that, just a figure of speech again, my little babies, to know that, there we are, that you've trampled over how many so that you can get your, just a figure of speech, my little babies, so that you can get your pound of flesh. That's not a very nice existence, my little babies, and especially when you see these ones with massive yachts and everything like this now then. Do you know what I mean? Would they not just be happy living in a flat or living in a masonette or living in a small semi, three-bedroom semi or something like this now then? So why do they need mansions scattered all over the place? Why do they need yachts? Why do they need all these things? You can only be in one place at one time. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, my little babies. So you have to see, truly see, there we are, what has gone on here. For myself, I wouldn't be jealous or envious of any of them. Who would want to be jealous or envious of ones who have been so truly dishonest, so there we are, putrid and vile with it? Okay, and that they think they're better than everybody else now then. Well, no, they're not. Everybody's shart stinks. And nobody is better than anybody, and that is how I'm going to leave my video. So please, have full protection for yourselves, your beautiful selves, your beautiful families, and your beautiful friends, okay? And please take care of yourselves now then, and please try to take care of others. All I do with my videos is give out information, there we are, give food for thought, and I'm just done doing what I'm done doing, okay? So, I'm certainly not here to hurt, offend, or upset anybody, because I'm not that kind of woman. However, if I believe that something's not quite correct, there we are, then I shall call it out. You know what I mean? I'm no different to anybody else. Others call things out, so why shouldn't I call it out? But of course, once your card's marked, if you know what I mean, my delicious babies, you know what I mean? That's how it goes. So my card's marked on old YouTube. You know what I mean, my delicious babies? So until my next video, you just please look after yourself. Once again, thank you so very much for even taking the time to listen to my video. I will get my lights back soon because I feel a little bit bare without them, okay, my delicious babies? And how I love you all so, okay? And if it is beautiful weather, please enjoy it, whatever hour of the day it is, whatever o'clock it is, please enjoy. Sometimes in life, you do not have to have, any time in life actually, you do not have to have all luxuries and everything around yourself, you know what I mean? You could be sat in the middle of a meadow, okay, especially on a day like this. You know what I mean? And you're surrounded by flowers, grass. How beautiful is, there we are, how beautiful is that? And that doesn't cost a damn thing. Okay, my little babies, but they want you and I, all of us, to believe that happiness is all about what you have, but it's not. Okay? You and I, there we are. have got ourselves, we've got our beautiful personalities, okay? You have your beautiful families and friends and so forth, you know what I mean? That is the true, there we are, beauty. And then we've got our beautiful babies and little animals, birdies, creatures great and small. That is the true beauty. Nature, trees, grass, flowers, bushes, okay? Just to be able to wake up in the morning, there we are. That is the true beauty. And that's how I'm going to leave my video. So, love ya. You're delish. Goodbye.